All right, welcome to welcome to Raw Talk.
Welcome
Take 2.
back.
Okay,
back.
so just to give you a little bit of context, we just recorded. No, we didn't record.
No,
We just did
We just talked.
a whole podcast, and I swear I pushed the record button, Zach.
I forgive you, buddy.
But
I forgive you. That's
so
what,
we're gonna
That's what friends do.
we're gonna attempt this, and forget about the intro that we
Yeah.
just did normally or previously, excuse me, and but so we were talking about friends, friendships, and then we're seeing just how good of a friend Zach is.
I know. Tell my wife to be home at 7. I'm not gonna make it, but it'll be okay.
Yeah, if we both our wife sprout wings and fly, we're gonna be there for each other.
That's right. We'll be there. It'll be okay. She'll be fine.
So anyway, we're tonight we want to discuss the topic of friendships. And I think the biggest
I had a great segue into that.
Oh man,
it was so good.
You did. We'll never know though.
Never know. But we don't want this to sound scripted, so we got to kind of erase everything we said. That wasn't what God had in store for us to say. So whole different thing.
Boy, this is a learning curve.
It
ain't
is.
All right, so
we're not professionals. This is.
Well, yeah, and we did have a guy, a good friend.
Yeah, that we didn't call.
Because we're independent.
That's right.
And we
we're
like
guys, and sometimes we don't reach out like we should and ask for help.
I know, and so that's a lesson learned, ain't it?
That is.
So lesson number 1 is
yeah, call your friends when you
call
need
your buddies
something. When you need something.
So anyway, so the topic of friendship is what's on the horizon for this particular podcast. Take 2, and I think it was a good conversation, Zach.
I learned a lot. I learned so much about Justin and friends and everything, and we're going to reiterate a lot of that in this.
We're going to do our best.
We are.
And but this is going to make a blooper for sure.
Is. No, yeah.
So that being said, we just want to talk about the importance of friendships and some of the struggles that you had making friends and maintaining friendships and what keeps you from having those friendships and what that was it modeled in your life, and so that's those kind of things that we would like to run through as we talk about this subject. So Zach, tell me, what does a friend look like to you?
Forgiving, very forgiving, allowing to give up his time. This is just funny to me, people, and it's great. This is because this is honest. This is how we imagined it when we said we would do this. Is,
Nah, I didn't imagine not pushing the record button. But
it's the point of just the idea of, hey man, we're 2 simple guys sitting here having real conversations and things happen, and I just in the last hour doing that. Just the laughs that we had. And I mean, that's friendship. It's sitting around and being able to do stuff and try stuff and make mistakes and forgive. And we did all poke fun and open up and be honest. And I think we just had all that in the last hour and 3 minutes. And then Guy was like, how close friends are you? Because y'all didn't push the button. And, we can laugh about it, and we can, I mean, it's not huge. It's not a huge thing by no means. But then again, it's one of those things that I would. There's nowhere else I'd rather be than sitting here with you right now doing this. And I mean, but it's a great thing because I enjoy this. And
You'd probably rather be home eating supper.
No, I ate something for you when you left a while ago. I took a little snack break. But man, friends to me are it is somewhere that I desire to be with my friends. I desire to hang out, to laugh, to do interesting things, different things with people I can trust, and that's something that we've grown to have together over the years. And I think this podcast is even helping us get closer together as friends, and be honest and make mistakes and laugh. But friendship to me is huge. It's something I desire. I want. We've already said once, I'm not necessarily best at all points of being a friend.
And I think that's one of some of the things that we discussed, that guys naturally, I mean, we're good buddies.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't make the best of friends. And I think sometimes is one, I think we don't necessarily always know how.
Yeah.
Or what that necessarily looks like. B, I think sometimes that, as providers and everything, and our families and everything, it's kind of hard to find time and make time for that, because we obviously know that to have a good quality friendship, it takes a little bit of investment and a little bit of.
Well, if I could have been the guy now that I was in high school, man, I'd be an awesome friend right now. Like,
well,
back in high school, I was a ride or die guy.
You mentioned that in your story.
Yeah, man, I was.
You was very loyal.
I was very loyal, and I was there for you, and I was there every day. If you're my guys, man, you could count on me. Like old Andy, Toy Story. You got a friend in me. I'm there.
You got a friend in me.
And that last episode was good, but it I lost train of thought. This is funny, y'all. It is, but but as we go through seasons of life, and high school and college, I think you have that time and that vulnerability to make friends and to desire friends and need that, and then you get married, and now you got your wife, and you're newly married, and friendships start looking different of what you need and what you want. And I'm friends with this guy because my wife's married. I mean, my wife's friends with her, so now I'm have to be friends with her husband. And so you're starting to maybe let go of some friendships and gain some friendships, and then you have kids and you don't have the time, so now you're backed away from a lot of friendships because you don't have the time or energy to invest. And then when that season's kind of coming to an end, you realize, man, it's just me and my wife.
Yeah.
And maybe a few people that was a part of that, but it's not like it was. And now you're desiring that, and now it's like, hey, we got to go out and make friends again, and we don't really know how to do that, or we just, man, that's too much effort. I'm in my 40s, 45, maybe.
I don't have the energy.
I don't have the energy or the want to put myself out and to be vulnerable. Because
the opposite of that is just isolating yourself.
Yeah, or just making it pure easy. I mean, I think isolation is one of those. It's like more disciplinary word. Like, I'm in isolation, but I think I know now, right now, if you're not my friend and I just met you and I was like, man, this is a cool dude. Hi, Justin. And then me and you're going to start hanging out, and then it's like, okay, man, for Justin to become a good friend of mine, I'm going to have to put in a lot of effort and time and call and invite. And then he's going to learn about me and Heather's, the ugly side of me and Heather. And is he going to stay around? And then, my kids and all that, is he going to like them? And then are they going to like his kids? And, is he going, if we have a, weekend at the lake, is he going to bring
Our kids did like each other at one time.
I was wondering when that was going to ever come up. Yes, they did. They did. They actually.
Every now and then when your photos on your phone like brings back a memory or something in there.
Yeah.
The other day, Jackson and Kaylin's pulled up.
Oh man!
I took for homecoming.
Oh.
So.
That's funny. Bella always thinks this is funny that we do this, and that our kids dated and we can still be friends,
Oh yeah.
Like that was their.
We were kind of, it was kind of funny because we talked to each other a lot because I wanted to make sure I knew what was going on.
Justin was calling,
and you gave me intel
too.
So
I was down. We were. That was good. That was good friendship.
Yeah,
we could deal with that. But I think that is something that a lot of guys are like, man, that's gonna be a lot of work. Friendship is work. You got to put it's like any relationship. You've got to put the time and effort into it, and a lot of us just don't want to do that. We just, we have them and we're going to keep them, and there's the ones we're going to work on, or we're not going to necessarily reach out and try to make new ones.
Well, and shared Zach and I can contribute it as well, but like you talked about levels of friends.
Yeah.
And because I mean, friends is kind of the word friend. It can almost be like the word love. It can be very generic.
Sure.
And so when we talk about relationships, we talk about friendships. I guess we're probably honing in on the ones that kind of you benefit from, but they benefit from you as well. And we talked about the logo on the hat. When I initially made that logo, it was 2 axes. Somebody asked me that, like, what's the 2 axes on the logo stand for? And that's funny that they asked me that. And I said, well, it's like I just initially, just pictured it as iron sharpens iron, and those kind of relationships where you benefit from it, and not just benefit from it, but you also, the other party benefits from it. What was that word I used?
I can't.
Reciprocity.
Yeah, one of the big words. That was such a funny moment. It was lost in time.
We'll never know.
You never know. Y'all will never know how funny that was while ago, just 30 minutes ago. I can't even say
reciprocity.
That's when something gives and you receive, and it's a give and take relationship. He has a great analogy with the tree and everything, but it is, and that's what I desire. Man, I've been in friendships or whatever, where you just give and give, and there's not a lot of give back, and it's exhausting, and so you kind of walk away from those, or you de-appreciate those. You kind of prioritize those a little bit lower, and you're desiring for that person to give just as much as you are. And man, that's I've got a friend like that I've had since 6th grade. And man, we've grown together, and we've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, and his relationships, my relationships, having money, not having money. We lived with each other in college. We lived each other, when we were broke, and we were just, he took me in, I've taken him in, and just borrowed money, given money, just everything. And well, I said earlier, if I was broke and I needed money, there's no doubt that's the dude I would call, and it would be no questions or anything. It'd be like, he would just do that for me. And I call those ride or dies. They're just there,
And I asked you for his number.
Yeah. And I was like, no, it's like a good babysitter. You don't give those numbers away. But there is different levels, and we're, when you talk about your circle of influence, your circle, and not everybody's as close as the next guy. And
it's okay that everybody can't be that
That's
person.
right. But a lot of people think that. They think, Justin and Zach are really close. I'm not as close to Justin as Zach is, so I'm really not that good of a friend of his. Well, that's just a misnomer. That's not you can't think of friendships like that. Because I got friends that, man, they get around and they got a lot in common, and they do a lot of stuff outside. They like to hunt. They like to work on, they're in hunting camps together, and, they don't call me when it's time to go clear lanes or to build deer stands or to do that.
And you're probably grateful for that.
And that is not Zach Yates. I don't do that. And so it doesn't hurt my feelings that they have that connection. And I don't feel like they're any better friends because they do, because what they have with each other, I've got something different maybe with one of them. But a lot of guys want to say, oh, well, I'm not going to have friends because it's not as good as what they have together.
Oh, well, that brings up a good point, because so many times, and, even with me, thinking that I'm not that great with friendships, and then I see people on social media doing stuff together all the time, it's kind of like, oh man, I wish I had that, or, wish I could be that person, whatever. And I get caught up in that comparison trap.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we all know that's not a
good healthy thing.
Yeah, most definitely.
And and you say that, and okay, it's just hard to remember stuff that we did say, and I'm like, am I reiterating this? But anyway, do you say you look on social media and you see that? Do you desire that?
Yeah.
but do you put the effort into having that?
Yeah. So, and I think that's where, the hang up is, the struggle is, because you got to understand, and this is something we talked about a lot in the previous attempt. My occupation, or my career has always been in the context of a church, whereas I always had to make sure, I was being that person that's outreaching or making sure I'm initiating the conversation. Last thing you want is people going out like, I went to that church and they didn't even speak to, that kind of, deal. So you're always got that, I don't know, maybe it's a pressure that maybe you put on yourself, and so you're always, I don't mean to say this in a negative way, but putting out,
Yeah.
and giving or whatever, and putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And so when you go to have friendships, you feel like you don't have nothing left to put into it. And I know that may be a misunderstanding, because I also like the friendships that I can hang around people where I can just let my hair down, and don't necessarily have to be always initiating it, or always trying to pour into it.
Yeah, I think, my best example of a good friend a person that I look at and say, man, that's the kind of friend you want, is my wife. And my wife's a great friend. She calls
Two other people.
Yeah. I mean, I just her friendships, not just me and her, but to her girlfriends. And she's one of those people who, man, she's on call, she's on check, she's gonna come by, she's gonna bring something if you're sick, she's gonna call and ask if she can help with the kids if your kids are sick. I mean, she's just that kind of person. I mean, if you're living out of state and you need her, I mean, she's gonna come to me and like, hey Zach, I need to buy a plane ticket and I need to go spend time with, so and so, they're going through this. And I'm like, okay. I mean, but she's always been that kind of person, even since we were in high school. And me and her came to an understanding very young in our relationship that we value friendships a lot, because you can't be that everything for each other. So if you're married and you're thinking, well, I've got my best friend, I married my best friend. Well, I believe that can't be totally true. I think your spouse is one of your best friends because you can be there, you can talk, you can open up, you can tell them anything because they're doing life with you and they know. But then again, I do think there's some man things that we go through that I can't tell my wife. And there's been times in my life that hey, are you done with your thing? No, I'm redoing it. No, you just got a text. But anyway, sorry. I thought that was funny. You can cut that out. But I do believe that there was a point in my life where I've tried to make my wife my best friend, and I counted on her for so many different layers of what I was needing. I needed that somebody to talk to, somebody to go fishing with, somebody to act up and to clown around with, and to do all that. And at that point in my life, a lot of my friends had other things in their life going on, and so they pulled away, and I didn't feel like reaching out to the next group of guys that maybe I could have. So I just made Heather that. And, that was exhausting for her. And not that she didn't try, but it was very exhausting. And I can remember her coming to me and was like, hey, Zach, you got to get out. You got to
time out.
Like, this is just too much. Like, I can't be everything for you. And I had to apologize for that because I put her in a lose-lose position. And she was just like, you need your guys.
Yeah.
And just
that's
like
we talked
girls.
about that you just need to get out and scratch your balls.
You do. I mean, you got to get out and be a man, and you got to talk man things. And, when you're walking up and you're farting on your wife and all that, and she was like, that's too much. Time out. No,
I ain't pulling
you can
your
do
finger.
that with your buddies.
I ain't pulling your finger any longer.
So. Those jokes aren't funny with me. Hey, go be with the guys. And I'm like, well, I don't have no guys to be with. Like, you're the only person I'm hanging out with nowadays. And, well, you need to go venture out. Like, go find somebody. Like a lot of people. And I'm like, well, everybody's busy. And no, they're not. there's a lot of guys sitting out there waiting on
Probably
you to reach
having the
out.
same issue.
Having the same issue.
Yeah.
And that's one thing we learn in men's retreat that we see a lot, and we see a lot of guys,
Isolation.
they're just isolating. But then you ask them, like I just asked you, what are you doing to build those? And they're like, well, nothing. I mean, we're tired. We're tired, or we're tired of work, or we're tired of dealing with our kids, or we're tired of whatever's going on in our life, and we're just like, do I really want to put that much energy, and time?
And the reality of it is just taking the initiative.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest part of it, because like once you get together with a friend that understands you, and again, the iron sharpens iron principle, you're not having to invest. I want to say invest. You're not having to put out emotionally, like you probably normally would have in any other kind of situation.
Well, I think it's yes, and I think we're probably talking to people right now of people who don't have friends, guys who are desiring that, and I think that's if you've never had a really good friend or in a good friend group, then you don't know what you really don't understand the work that it would take, and if you have had it or you have it. It's like, I mean, there's some work behind that. There's forgiving, there's understanding, there's, miscommunication. There's so many facets, especially if you're friends for a long time.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to say something to hurt somebody's feelings. Somebody's not going to be able to do something. Somebody's going to get in an argument in front of you and ruin the evening, that y'all went out and paid, to have dinner, and the other couple argued, and you're just like,
somebody's gonna forget to push the record button on the
just so many facets
audio.
that can end friendships so quickly, and like not pushing the button. But it's one of those things where, man, if you're really friends, like you got to be quick to forgive, let that stuff go, and that's hard. That's hard for men to do.
From a scriptural standpoint, because we talked about a lot about this in our previous attempt. So would you agree with me that it takes a whole lot of mercy and grace to be a really good friend?
Yes, I do. And I've had to have it personally. Not only me giving it, but me receiving it, because I make a lot of mistakes.
Okay.
Everybody knows I don't answer the phone all the time. I'm not great at calling people back. I don't always answer or respond to text. I'm very forgetful. I'm not trying to be mean or hurtful. That's just who I am.
You're just not a phone person.
I'd rather go to your house. And if I'm driving and I'm like, I need to go tell Justin something, I would probably rather drive by your house and have a face-to-face than I would call you. Like, I get the phone boards me so quickly, so, but a lot of times people, I don't know why they do it while I am busy at the barbershop. And so when people call or text, I turn around and I look and I'm like, I'm gonna hit them back in a minute. And then I just never do.
Sure.
So it's not intentional. But a lot of people have had important things they needed or stuff I forgot or whatever. And they're like, well, I called you or I texted you. And so, I mean, I've had to have that, and I've said stuff or not shown up for stuff. And for some people, I disvalued or maybe not saw how important it was to them, but it was. And so they had to forgive me or to show me mercy in that, because if it's important to you and you're my friend, just like my wife, then it needs, I need to find some value in that.
Yeah.
And so I need to come to it or be a part of it.
Sure.
And not just, oh man, they don't need me there. And so then again, that's that willingness to value other people's opinions or wants or needs. And then again, for a guy, sometimes that's not what we think about first. As first, we're very selfish. And I think that's one thing we have to identify, is that we're selfish. We're created with a selfish nature. And so whenever you're talking about me giving up my Saturday or me giving up my Friday nights, and it's just like, oh man, I'm just tired. I just don't want that. Or, especially the older you get, I mean, you just don't have the energy level to do like you used to. But that's when we talked about different seasons, like, and sometimes we look at people that we knew in our 20s and our 30s, and it's like, man, we used to do this and we used to do this, and You know, he was always that fun and let's go, and now he's not there, so he doesn't like me as much. Or
All my rowdy
know,
friends have settled down.
that's it. You couldn't say it better. You know, Hank put it
Hank
right
Jr.
on the nose on
Yeah.
that one. You know, but it is, and I have. I mean, I'm not. People know like Friday nights. I'm not that great on a Friday night anymore.
Yeah.
Wait till Saturday. I work half a day. I go home. I take a little nap. We can head out about 5:36. I'm good, but I'm not that great. And you just have to give that person that leniency to be who they are. And a lot of times, if people don't meet our needs, then we don't want to be friends with them. You know.
Okay, so two thoughts. First of all, do you find it harder to maybe have to put that persona on, or do you feel it necessary to put that persona on around a level of friends? Or B, what level does a friendship have to be for you to be able to them that can be able to speak into you and or to say the hard things?
You know, I mean, I might be a little different because I do have.
I think me and you are different on that.
Yeah, because I mean, I can take value from anybody's opinion, and I can rate it on the way they know me, you know, or what I've been able to show them. And so, yes, there's some guys who may say something about me, and then I have to let them know that, hey, yes, I haven't been totally, because I don't know you that well.
Yeah.
You know, so Paige, my best friend, or one of my best friends, or PV, or Josh, or Mikey, or some of them guys, they would go, no, that's not Zach. You just don't know him the way we know him. And they're like, and I had, and on the flip side of that, like, I want to know guys like that. I want to be able to speak into you. And so when we have gone through the fun times, hey, let's go out to eat. Hey, let's go to the lake. Hey, let's spend time. Hey, let's do this. Hey, it's your kid's birthday party. And we've got time invested. And I know, because I know you're going through something, and I ask you, man, how you doing? What's going on? And I just get that smile and that, hey, I'm fine. And I'm like, hey, man, at what point are you going to start being real with me? Like, at what point are you going to let me in? You know, like, we can't go to that next level of friendship if you're always what I call a 10. If you're always fine, which is the worst word in the world, because nobody's just fine. I mean, we're always dealing with something. And, you know, but we say that to shut people up or just whatever. But it's one of those things where, you know, if you're just keep doing that to me, then I know we haven't really broken the surface of friendship. We haven't gone to that next step. Now, me personally, like, if I feel like I can trust you and we've done that, and you're like, hey, Zach, man, I really see you doing this, and I don't know why. I don't care if we've known each other for a day or if we've known each other for 10 years. I can accept that and talk with you and be there. And then once you do that to me, man, that kind of steps you up in my book. Like, if you can call me out or challenge me in some way, then I'm like, oh, man, this dude's trying to be my friend.
Sure.
You know, I don't want just a guy who's going to show up for the good. I want that guy who will show up for the bad too.
Well, and I think a person that has proven character and has your best interest in mind, I think that's the person I would let, speak into me, who's spent enough time and knows me well enough to know the context, or willing to ask me the questions. Because I'm not afraid of hard conversations, and especially because, again, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not afraid of being called out. I mean, not always necessarily the most comforting thing, but at the same time, I want to grow. I want to go beyond myself and everything else. So if somebody sees something in me, I want to have that level of relationship where they can speak into me. And, talking about the mercy and grace aspect of it, from a biblical standpoint, Romans 12:1-2, I beseech you, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present yourselves a holy sacrifice. And then in verse 2, it says, do not be conformed to the world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So transformation is the end result. we desire, right? As believers, as human beings, we're God created us with potential in mind. We should be pursuing that potential. So transformation is that end result. But at the same time, a lot of times we don't experience transformation until we experience mercy. Because it says in verse 1, by the mercies of God, the only way we have the opportunity to be transformed by the mercies of God. But I think we experience the mercy of God when we experience the mercy and grace through one another.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's deep, but I do agree with that. But how many times has somebody done something very uncharacteristic or something, and we're just, I mean,
we let it bypass.
Yeah, we're just like,
yeah.
Well, like that's like.
But I think we're scared of relationships like that.
Well, we used this word earlier, intimate. And that's not a great word for a man because we refer that to
sex.
Sex or what. But to be intimate and to let somebody in on that level, and then that person to let you down after you've done that. You
become more guarded.
Then you're guarded, and I think that goes into our past. I think that goes into, how our parents are, portrayed it, or they, maybe how the men in our lives, from a dad to a friend to siblings to whatever, and you're just so guarded from, men relationships because men, we screw up so much, especially when it comes to being there. It's so much easier not to. And so what do guys want? We want that easy. We want it to be easy because we're working so hard at so many different things, and so, I got to work hard, in my marriage. I got to work hard at work. I got to work hard, raising my kids. I really don't want to have to work hard in developing these other relationships.
Sure.
I want those to be easy now.
Yeah.
Because I prioritize.
And it don't always have to be super hard. I mean, there are times where they're probably hard, and there's times where, you want it to be natural.
Yeah. And when I say hard, I don't mean like having to punch them in the face to be your friend. I'm just saying, hey, please be my friend. No, I'm talking about like time is hard.
Yeah.
Like to give up an afternoon or, it's like me, like when I go to the lake house, like sometimes I just like going alone. Like, I'll talk to guys all day, like, got worries. So when I go out there, sometimes I just want to be alone. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot of great opportunities that I have, and even thoughts of, hey, why don't you call so-and-so? Or then again, my beautiful, smart, great friend of a wife will say, hey, why don't you call so-and-so? And she'll challenge me to do that. Well, my first thing is like, man, I'm going to have to pick up extra food. I'm going to have to do this. And I just think about the work that it's going to take to invite somebody.
It's easy.
And
it's easy
easier to go by yourself and to hang out. And I enjoy that. So what I'm saying is the easy isn't like the initiation and all that, or it's just the call, or to have to talk. Guys don't want to talk all the time, so when we go do our fun things, or we're going hunting, or go to a hunting camp, or we're going fishing, or we're going to a ball game, sometimes we just want to go. And I've got friends, and we did talk about this earlier, but sometimes I do gauge, man, when I can go, I got good friends that, man, we can sit and fish and, man, just be okay in the silence.
Yeah.
We don't have to dig and to enter, because we know so much about each other. Like, if we say, hey, I spent 2 hours with this, and we really didn't talk that much, Heather would be like, what'd y'all talk about? I'm like, we were nothing. And she's like, no. And
yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah. So what'd y'all talk about? I'm like, really? We didn't say much. And if we had to talk the whole time, I would really question how close we were. Now, there is times that we get deep, or, we need a lot of, might have a situation going on, so we talk through it, and I'm open for that. But, there's a lot of times that, man, just being able to sit in the comfort of each other's company and just knowing, man, I just like you being here.
Yeah.
We can watch a movie. Sometimes some of the crazy, I'm just like, people will watch me and some of my friends, and they're like, y'all just kind of doing your own thing. Like, y'all not really in, like he's doing this over here and you're doing this over here, and y'all don't really, and I'm like, man, that's how we do, or it was the other day, it was funny, some boards at my lake house on our dock need to be replaced, and Heather and some of her friends were at the lake, And one of our friends their dad has a lake house down the street from us or whatever. And my sister-in-law was at the lake with Heather, and she looked out the window and she goes, Heather, there's somebody out there working on your dock. And Heather looks out there and she's like, oh yeah, that's our friend Peavy. And she goes, what's he doing? And like, looks like he's replacing boards. Oh, did y'all know he's going to do that? No, he's just doing it. He saw it needs to be done, and he's just fixing them.
Yeah.
And she goes, he didn't tell y'all he was coming? And they're like, no. I'm like, y'all okay with that? And they're like, it's Peavy. Like, yeah, sure. Like, his kids come over and swim off our dock all the time. Like, they'll go in our stuff and grab the lily pad and take it out. Like, they don't have to call. Like, we don't care. We have that kind of friendship. And I don't think she really understood that, like that was uncomfortable to some people. And for us, it was just like, man, that's our people.
Yeah.
Like we're that close. Like, he's going to fix it and not call Zach and say, hey, you need to go buy some boards and fix your dock because my kid's going to fall through it. He's just going to show up and fix it.
Yeah.
And that's a level of friendship that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
And man, I've been blessed to have a lot of guys in my life that I do have those kind of friendships with. But also, we were talking about this earlier, and a lot of our friends are in different stages of our lives because a lot of them have younger kids.
Yeah.
And so when me and Heather with older kids can go on any night of the week at 8:00 at any time, go out to eat or go to a show or go to do something, they're putting their kids to bed.
Yeah.
And so, we're like, man, who we're going to call? Like, we have to reach out to other people. We have to develop, if we want people to go do stuff with, we have to start kind of bridging out to other people and that are in our age range. And man, sometimes like we haven't been super successful with that, to be honest. And it's harder, and because now it's like we were saying earlier, it's like, okay, if we do that, like, what are we going to talk about? Like, and if we have to talk, then we're going to maybe have to get real. And do we really want to bring other people into that or to our world? And I'm not talking about the deep stuff, but like you said, the more you spend time with each other, the more you're going to be honest about the real world stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes that scares you away.
Well, I think, so we talked about how it was or was not modeled for us as kids. My parents were very communal, in regards, they're very, into community. I told you our form of entertainment was going to each other's, my dad and mom had sets of friends that we would go to each other's house. They would just stop in, any moment in time. Dad would see somebody pulling up in the driveway. Hey, Dad, hey, son, go put on a pot of coffee. That was pretty standard for our house. But I don't ever remember my mom and dad ever having like really deep relationships. Like I don't at all.
Yeah.
Like I think because and I know that to some extent, unless they're, I could be wrong. They probably could. My mom could probably share with me like, I did have friends that I confided in, whatever. I just don't remember it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think my mom and dad didn't want to, want people. Or at least my dad didn't want people that close didn't want to know what was going on in his life.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like one of those deals where I think I found value in both of those. Like I don't necessarily have to always have honest and deep, conversations, but at the same time, I need times where I just want to hang out, somebody light a fire and, just talk life, and hang out and let my hair down.
That's right.
Don't have to try to impress nobody or, just be Justin Shipley, and that's okay with
and he's
person.
A pretty good guy to be around. I think that's one thing maybe we don't value ourselves enough to think that we can be a good friend or somebody would want to be our friend. And, and that's why it's just like, man, I'm not going to do the work. So nobody needs me in their life, and we downplay that. And we've been told that maybe we didn't grow up with a lot of friends, but back to your point about parents, my parents, what I would say my dad's friends was family, my uncle and his cousin, we fished, we did a few things with them. if we went and did anything, it was kind of with them. But I would say overall, like a huge circle of friends or people coming over, I didn't see that a lot. Didn't really think nothing about it. I didn't know how grown-ups did friendships.
Yeah.
I can't say I don't think then as a kid I was like, oh, because we didn't have social media. I didn't see like you do now, like people doing stuff
Hanging
all
out,
together
yeah.
with different families. But I do think nowadays I look back and I'm like, I wonder why my parents didn't have them over as much, or we didn't have that many people come over and hang out. Because me and Heather have that. We have people's house we go to pretty regularly, and we eat dinner and we're invited to dinner. And I mean, it's not planned; it's random. Kind of show up, and that a lot of it's because of Heather. A lot of it. She's, like I said, she drives that in our world, and I enjoy it, and she pushes me to do more of it. But it is, I think, a great example for our kids to see, and that then when they grow up, because our friends that we do that with are the same people who invest in our kids.
Yeah.
And we talked about that, like these guys that I'm doing life with, I mean, they've had those hard conversations with Jackson and Bella, or the women show up for Bella's things, and we show up to their kids' dance recitals or their ball games, and and they're like,
and that means the world to those
and
kids.
it does,
yeah.
and
it means the world to your kids too.
It does mean a lot to them. And when you've got the biggest cheering section at your ball game, and those people are like, man, you got a big family, and they're like, well, that's
so
that's
funny.
Just my parents' friends.
Your son Jackson worked for Chad Wise around his place last year or whatever. Well, Micah's been doing it here lately, and so Chad had him over one day and he said, hey boy, he said, you ever ran a chainsaw? And Mike goes, no, never have. He said, first time for everything,
Yeah, taught him how to do it.
I think
I think he taught Jackson a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because I don't do a lot of outside laborious things. I don't.
Well,
like
last time I ran a chainsaw, he was quite a bit younger.
Yeah.
And
when
so
the trees fell in the tornado.
Yeah, in the hurricane.
Hurricane, yeah.
Yeah. So but I had him splitting wood.
Yeah.
That's on my Instagram.
Go.
Watch him go look. Homeboys, I had a mauler in a.
I think you worked my kid on that backyard project too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I wore him out a little bit.
You did.
He's like,
I
that's another story.
Yeah. So I think those are things that are very valued in friendships. And I know I've talked to enough guys and not just talk, like having conversation, but in counsel, that, man, when it comes right down to it, that's what they're missing. They're just missing that relationship. And
we gotta start advocating it.
We do. In the men's retreat, and I'll go back to that. And if you hadn't heard us talk about it, these retreats we do for guys through our churches and stuff, and there's 40 guys that come as retreaters, and then there's 50 or 60 guys helping. And and these guys start seeing this camaraderie, and they're opening up, and they're talking, and they're laughing, and then we're eating together, and we're serving one another. And then when they come back, man, it's so funny to see. It's only really equivalent of 2 days.
Yeah.
But we've done church with these guys for years.
And never had that.
And well, I mean, I've walked by some of these guys for 20 years in this church. And hey man, how you doing? Hey man, how you doing? And we just walk. Now it's like a high five, a hug, some bro hug, some little two pat, let go kind of hug. And it's like, never had that before. And it was 2 days of intimate, spiritual, awakening type stuff, and doing life together and being honest with how we feel or what we're going through. And somebody is saying this raw.
And you experienced something you didn't realize you needed.
Didn't even know. And then you come back and it's like, man, that's what I like. Yeah. I need that in my life.
Okay, if you can make this point again that you made in the previous attempt.
Okay.
About Jesus.
Okay.
And the disciples. Jesus modeled it.
He modeled it. And that's one thing I always refer back to, because, as much as, we're Christians, we advocate that. I mean, we're very up and honest about our beliefs. And but the biggest thing, I'm a Christ follower. And so when I'm talking to guys and they're talking about, all this, I'm like, well, Jesus needed it. he had 12 guys he walked with, and when he was going into the hardest part of his life, and he went into the
leaned
garden
in on and prayed, had them pray.
Yeah, brought in the 3 guys, and they let him down. They fell asleep, and he comes back and they're sleeping, and he called his buddies out. It's like, man, I brought y'all in here. I need y'all to pray for me.
Yeah.
Like, y'all let me down, and he didn't, and they didn't just, oh man, you want too much out of us and flee. They listened to it. They took that, and but it was we were talking about like that, the movie Chosen.
Yeah.
And I really like this part of the show because this is the Jesus I know. This is the Jesus I envision as not only a teacher, but as a friend. But it was that part, and they're leaving when Jesus turned the water into wine,
Yeah.
his first miracle. And they're leaving, and Jesus goes up and he throws his arm around. I know Andrew was under one arm, and I think it's Peter under the other, and he makes a joke and he says, Peter, for my second miracle, I'm gonna heal your feet from all that bad dancing you were doing. And I was just like, man, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's the Jesus I know, because he had to be that kind of friend.
Yeah.
That could laugh, that could cry, that can make jokes. And when they're sitting around the fire at night, somebody, Thaddeus or somebody
passing
pooted.
gas, yeah,
pooted, or making fun of each other's stepping in the donkey dookie, and all the stuff that happens in a day. You just know that camaraderie was just as important as any other part of that relationship.
I mean, we kind of think that these disciples followed Jesus, and it was like all around Yoda session all the time, and it wasn't.
I can't believe that.
I mean, it was.
Because you just think, as a man, what would you do if somebody, every time you sat around them was deep, and like you said, like we'd be like, oh, here comes Justin. That dude is finna wear us out about Psalms. Like, he's going to test it. No, we wouldn't want to hang out. Jesus had to be like the coolest dude.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because these are fishermen. These are a eclectic group of guys. And so to keep their attention and to be able to meet the needs that he did, and I know he's God, and I know what people would maybe argue that about, but I'm just telling you, like, if Jesus desired it, Jesus needed it. He showed it. He was vulnerable. He poured into these guys. They did him wrong. Peter denied him 3 times. He knew everything. He was forgiving. He was forgiving. He didn't just, oh man, you're gonna do me wrong. Get out of here. You're not one of my 12. Even when Judas did wrong. Yeah. I mean, But he knew people were going to make mistakes. He knew what those friendships were going to look like. He knew it when he picked them, but he still desired those relationships, even with their faults. And I think we have to do that. And once guys realize, man, if Jesus needed it, and that's what I tell people a lot of times when a lot of this biblical stuff we talk about, why were you baptized? Because Jesus was baptized. He's my example. So if he did it, I'll do it. Why do you desire relationships so much? Because Jesus desired those relationships. And if he needed them, I need them. I mean, it's so apparent to me that I can't do life by myself.
Yeah.
And I don't want to. I really don't. I mean, I'm not strong enough. I'm not mentally strong enough to be able to go through a marriage. I mean, I can just break down how guys and friends in my life have affected my marriage, and just as through counsel, being able to pick up the phone and just, man, I mean, even from like, hey, dude, I'm burnt out. Take me on a trip. Take me somewhere and get my mind off what's going on. And these guys just say, come on, let's jump in the truck this weekend.
That's why I can't wait till the fall.
Yeah.
So we can go out and light a fire and sit around the fire.
That's it. And our friends, and when these retreats, I mean, I think I know my circle is, and we talked about that, like, it's small, my intimate circle. But I do believe like it's getting bigger and bigger with the more that I'm open and I'm seeing these guys, and I'm doing life with more men. And man, there's guys who are pouring into me now that haven't in the past. And but I'm giving them that opportunity, and they're pouring into my son, and so when those.
But when they're pouring into you, that gives you more to pour into other people.
Oh, it does. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, more you pour into somebody, I mean, eventually you start overflowing, and it's like, man, let me tell you what Justin did, or hey man, Justin's doing this for me, and I need to be doing this for the next guy. And it's a lot easier to do it when you allow somebody. But in that same sense, sometimes we don't let people pour into us. We put the lid on, is because it's like, then I feel vulnerable that I need to do that for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I've heard that. It's like, man, I don't want a lot of friends because I don't want to be a lot of people's friend. Like, I don't want to put that out there. Like, that's when it comes back to that selfishness,
Yeah.
or that, you know, I don't want to do it because I don't have the energy to do it. Man, and that's sad. That's sad to me. And it's also sad when I hear a lot of guys talk, or we're talking, and they're desiring it so much, like they would cut off their right arm.
Well, we're
to have a
created
friend.
for it.
There we are. You have to want that relationship.
Yeah.
I mean,
Created for it. We're created to have community.
When guys tell me they don't want it, my first question is, what hurts you so bad that makes you not want it?
Yeah.
Like you've been hurt somewhere in there, because
It's,
if you don't desire
it's
it,
a protective.
that's right. If you've had a bad experience with something, you know, if you had sushi for the first time and it made you sick,
you ain't going back.
You ain't going back for sushi.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the old tequila thing. You know, if you had a bad experience with tequila, you don't ever want tequila.
I never heard that before.
We've never had a bad experience with tequila, but it's just one of those things. And it's like, man, you can't even smell it. You can't even be around it. Like, that's just skulls like that to me. Like my first experience with a dip of skull is I put it in my mouth at my cousin's. It was a Bandit. It was one of those in a pouch.
Yeah.
And I put it in my lip, and I'm bebopping up around his room, and I swallowed just a little bit. And I've got the weakest stomach in the world. And it took all of 2.2 seconds, and my stomach flipped. And I saw a Coke bottle. And I grabbed that Coke bottle and I filled it up. Before I know it, for 20 minutes, I'm just spraying all around my cousin's room. If you get in my truck and you pull out a Skull can, I will stop, pull over. You have to get out of my truck to get I can't even smell it. Like, I had so many bad experiences with Skull. Like, that's my thing, just from the get-go. So if you had a lot of bad experiences with friendships, or if you had a bad experience, you're going to be gun shy. Yeah. And how many men out there at maybe younger age, when we're more vulnerable, put themselves out there? Or even high school sucked. You know, like you went to high school and you got bullied, or you got picked on, or you were the low man on the totem pole, and you were there. So you've had so many bad experiences. It's like, now as a grown-up that I can choose, I'm not going to put myself out there. Yeah. Well, if you're not going to put yourself out there, you're not going to have many experiences.
Right.
You know, and then another thing is, and I think Jesus represented this very well. He started off with 12. And I think within there he had this 3, you know, and and I think a lot of times it's like, me and my daughter was talking about this the other night. You know, we think friends, like we got to have this multitude, and then popularity falls within friendship, right? So if I don't have a mass of friends, then I don't have friends.
Value, yeah.
And most people tell you, like I tell if you leave high school, or if you go through high school, and you got 3 or 4 really people that are invested in you and care, man, that's not even normal. Like, that's like, a lot of high school kids think they've got to be popular and have 30 people, 40 people around them. Well, you're probably not close to many of them, many of them being fake. But if you graduate high school and have 3 people you stay in contact with later in life, that's abnormal. And then to go to college is even less, and, you know, as you go up. And so, you know, one thing I talk to my kids about, and I have a true belief is, man, you know, friends, that multitude isn't always what you think it is. If you've got people in your life, and it might be a set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are in your inner circle, man, you're very blessed. Yeah. You're very blessed to have that, because there's a lot of people who they don't even have one, and they're lonely, and they desire it, but they for whatever reason, they're not having that, and they're depressed. And that's one thing, again, when you're talking to somebody, and I'm sure you've experienced it, and you're like, man, who you have in your life that you can tell this to? And how many guys have told you? Nobody.
Yeah.
There's nobody. I mean, if you ever counseled anybody, I mean, if you're really, like, you know, you can't be there for them all the time, and you're not that person for them, but they're looking at you as a minister, or me sometimes it's as a barber, and they'll open up and tell me stuff. And I'm just like, man, who do you have in your life that you can reach out and call when you feel like that or whatever? And they're like, I don't have that person in my life. Man, that is heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
That there's, and then, but they're part of church, and they're part of these different activities and these different groups. And even within that, man, they don't have anybody. And I'm just like, man, that just breaks my heart. to know there's guys that don't have them.
So I guess the takeaway is that, like, we need to be advocates, of developing relationships, those in that inner circle.
That's right.
You need to, let's be honest, you need to learn how to be a good friend.
That's right. I tell my kids all the time, be the friend that you want to have.
And I would say on top of that, it's just like, I feel like you're never going to grow or become more of the best version of yourself without those relationships.
Okay. So give me, as we transition out of that, give me the three things that, if you're looking for somebody as a friend, that these are three of the foundational things you got to have to be in your inner circle. What are those?
I would say they have to have my best interest in mind. I would say it has to be easy to get. I say easy. The use, like you said, a joke and have fun. Just kind of let my hair down. I don't have to be somebody I'm not. I would say 3. A proven character.
Yeah. I think mine ultimately would be like fun. I know we both, like, you got to walk in the room and bring it up.
Yeah.
And not bring it down. Like, if you walk in a room and the vibe goes down, like, that's hard to be around.
Yeah.
2 would be somebody, that big old word you used in the last session. It's got to be reciprocated.
Yeah.
It's got to go both ways.
Oh yeah.
It's just, if you pour in and nothing's given back, it's hard to stay in that.
That's a leech.
Yes.
It's a parasite.
That's right. And the third is to be invested in, like my kids and my family, and have that desire to be more than just my friend, but be invested in what I got going on. Like, worried about my kids or my marriage or my wife. I mean, that's very important to me. And that's not from the get-go. I mean, I think that's built and grown, but I do think that's a very important, if we're going to continue our friendship, that you have to keep, mindful of everything in my life. If you're a part of me, you're part of everything.
Sure.
And that is me. But I think those are some great 3 things from both of us, that if you're out there and you're looking and you have a hard time keeping or finding friends or keeping friends, maybe it's because your picker's wrong. And that's a big thing. And I was talking to a guy, and I know we're wrapping this up, but it's one thing, he kept coming to me and we kept talking, and finally it just came down to, us like, man, your picker's off. Like, you're picking guys that are using you or whatever. Like, what is your like list of things you're looking for in friends? Let's talk about that. And really, it was just like, anybody that will hang out with me, anybody that will give me time.
Well, I've heard it said multiple times that you're going to become the top 5 people you hang out with.
Yeah.
The 5 people that is in your inner circle. That's who you're going to become.
That makes, I can see that.
So I would say you need to choose wisely.
Choose wisely. That's right.
So I'm going to end with this. I had a youth pastor. He spoke words of wisdom into me. He said, you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't roll your friends up in little green balls and flick them behind the couch.
That's some Mississippi stuff right there. You wonder why people make fun of you from being from Mississippi, because you say stuff like that. And the funniest thing he didn't say that we said in the last one, he got talking about biscuits and chocolate gravy.
I'm telling you.
From his one.
You want to be my friend?
I'm gonna go learn to make some biscuits and chocolate gravy. It's an
invite me
Arkansas
over
thing, though.
My wife makes it every now and then.
Does she? Well, I never invite me over, buddy.
Dude,
invite me
I'm
over
telling
for
you,
chocolate gravy and biscuits, and I'll come to your house.
Mind blowing.
And we'll start that every Sunday. I just come by in the afternoon, and we'll have biscuits and chocolate gravy, and I'll have chocolate milk because I don't drink coffee. And I'll come every Sunday to your house, and we can have time of friendship. How about that?
Okay, we probably need to do that at least once a month. Could we be this big around by the time we got finished eating the biscuits and chocolate gravy?
Small biscuits. Don't make no catfish head, fat head biscuits.
Oh no, baby! You gotta go all out.
We'll do it once a month, and that sounds good to me. Okay.
Well,
as we go out though, we went out like this in the first attempt. He sang us a song, y'all. He did. He sang us a song.
The one-liner song.
The one-liner song that just just incorporate what a friend is.
You got a friend in me.
There you go.
You got a friend in me. That's all I know.
That's Toy Story. If you didn't know, that's a great song.
All right.
See you later.